who didn't.
Yeah.
It looks like I didn't.
Ricky didn't.
Two women didn't. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a hearing of the Judiciary and Legislative Investigations Committee of the Baltimore City Council. Our chairman is very ill this evening, nothing permanent, and could not be here. So as vice chair, I'll be chairing this hearing. My name is Mary Pat Clark. I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee. To my left is Councilman Carl Stokes, the lead sponsor of the resolution that brings us here together tonight. To his left is Councilwoman Rochelle Ricky Spector. You're very welcome. And to his left is Councilman Warren Branch. Thank you. And to my, there's the president. To my right is the president of the City Council, Jack Young. To his right is Councilman Bill Henry. And to his right, on his birthday, is Councilman Eric Costello. Happy birthday. We are gathered here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, to... Oh, I'm sorry, Marguerite. I forgot to introduce you. This is Marguerite Murray. She is the really most important person here because she is the staff to this committee and keeps us as straight as we possibly can be. We do our best for her. Try to live up to her expectations. And welcome, Commissioner. Thank you for being here. We are here because of a resolution that was introduced by a number of co-sponsors here in the City Council, the lead sponsor being Councilman Carl Stokes, to talk about the public housing residents' sexual abuse allegations. And I'm going to, before I begin and call on the commissioner, who will be our first speaker, let me say that this hearing is being recorded and could be used in other ongoing investigations. I tell you that only because you're speaking to history here and might hear yourself in other venues because we are being recorded. So smile and know that, and welcome to the City Hall. We have received several letters. Copies are placed in the file, and we welcome other people to write as well if they wish to the committee. Before we begin, I don't think we have any agency reports, do we? No, there are no agency reports. Let me ask Councilman Stokes if he would please speak to us about his resolution. And then I will ask the president if he has any words to say. You're okay? All right. Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for convening the hearing tonight. I had am the lead sponsor, but it was obviously co-sponsored by the greater majority of the members of the City Council. This is a matter that came to us in two ways, actually. We actually had employees, some are now former employees, but we've had employees actually come to my office and to others to talk about these allegations that they say before they hit the Sun paper or hit the other media, they had passed up the complaints of harassment up the line. Now, no one spoke to me before I saw it in the paper, but they did speak to me afterwards and said that upper management knew of these issues far in advance of it coming to light in the paper, as well as many of the women who were alleged victims have said that this has been an ongoing situation for as much as 2 years prior to it coming to light. And so our effort here tonight is to try as best we can determine who knew what when, I understand all the criminal and civil matters going around on this, but our effort is to figure out why such a situation has been allowed to linger for so long. And maybe we won't find out who knew what when tonight, although there will be persons here tonight who will testify under oath, not on the oath, but will testify before us that they knew and they told others who did not act on it. And so the point here is that if folk did not know, if that's what is told, that they did not know, with all that may be said tonight, why they did not know and why better due diligence was not, did not happen. So we'll have that conversation in a few minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The President indicates that we should go forward, and Commissioner, I wonder if I could ask you to speak with us about the background here. Do you mind? Yeah, I'm going to ask everyone who speaks this evening to please go to this podium to do so.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Mr. President, members of the committee. You want name for the record, I guess? Paul Graziano, Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Baltimore City.
Right.
It would be the venue of this particular discussion. The incidents that have been alleged and that were formally filed in the lawsuit that was filed on September 28th, as I have indicated on many occasions, represent reprehensible acts that in no way would be tolerated by the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. And we have sent out communications to all approximately 10,000 residents of public housing, advising them of what their rights are, what their that we have a hotline. If you suspect any kind of activity of this sort, please contact us on the hotline. And in addition, if you think that something rises to the level of criminality, call the police at 911. And so that went out to every single resident in the housing authority, in the public housing. In addition, we sent a communication to all our employees reminding them of their responsibility to act as appropriate employees serving the public. And we also put in place an extensive training program to remind. Go ahead. I'm sorry?
No, Commissioner, can you speak louder?
Oh, okay, I'm
the
sorry.
The people in the back can't hear you.
Is that better?
It's
okay.
Fine with me, but
okay.
Can you hear him in the back now?
Is that better? Okay. We also have done underway to train all employees in that area of their responsibility, both people in the field and supervisory. There are two, in addition to the investigations the Housing Authority is undertaking, there are two outside formal investigations underway, the HUD Inspector General and the State's Attorney's Office. And we have been cooperating fully with them as well. We have agreed with plaintiffs' counsel to go to mediation in a federal court. I believe it starts on December 14th, and we will be there. Our intent is to resolve this set of matters through that process. Unfortunately, and with all due respect to this counsel, I cannot discuss any further details of this case at this point. We have privacy issues for the individuals involved, and we have, as I said, pending investigations and pending mediation. So I have to respectfully ask that you understand that I cannot respond to any further questions about any more specifics about what's going on at this point.
Well, Commissioner, perhaps I'll be with you in a minute. Let me get some background for the committee and for
Okay.
the gathered here, just about the Housing Authority of Baltimore City.
Sure.
When you talk about employees and when you talk about residents, you're talking about Housing Authority of Baltimore City, correct?
Employees of the Housing Authority of Baltimore City and residents who reside in our public housing developments,
And
yes.
that includes the family developments as well as the senior citizen buildings and the
Well,
like?
we only have a couple of senior citizen buildings, but yes, the mixed population buildings, which includes seniors and
And the
non-elderly
disabled.
persons with disabilities, certainly would cover the senior buildings too. We only have a couple, and then all the family sites and the scattered site public housing as well.
So how many I just want some facts and figures about that. How many employees are there in the Housing Authority of Baltimore City?
There are approximately 700 and something positions there.
And do you know how many there are that are based out? I guess they're all based out at various locations serving
No, there
these
are
residents?
a number that are assigned to various sites, and then there are others who are assigned to central offices or other remote locations.
Managers.
The Section 8 office, for instance, over on Pratt Street. I don't know. They have probably 120 employees. They don't interact with the residents who live in public housing.
Right.
They just deal with the voucher holders.
So the Section 8 program is part of the Housing Authority?
It is. But they
What
deal
else?
with the residents who are in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, not in the public housing.
Okay.
We good?
Yes,
Yes,
Councilman
if I could.
Stokes.
Commissioner, how often are the housing complexes inspected?
The housing complexes are inspected annually by a third-party inspector that we contract out to. Every single unit is inspected annually.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, as complaints arise, we'll go in and do inspections and make repairs as well.
So as we look now at, thank you, as we look now at all of the matters that are before us in terms of units not being in such great shape, or a great many units, what happens after the inspections? How are maintenance or repairs prioritized, and how do we get things repaired, and in what time or fashion does that occur?
Well, emergencies are repaired in 24 hours. There are, the standard is 30 days on routine, and we are meeting that standard in a number of places. In some places we're not, and we're doing things to accelerate that.
So how does it get to be, for example, when you went out and visited a couple of housing projects, that you found matters that seemed to be emergency, like stoves, and a couple of other problems? I don't have them in front of me. And so how does it get to that point that when you went out, there they were, these gaping problems of people living? One lady, I remember, living in a place that smelled of gas for apparently a couple of months, huh?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we went into a relatively small sample of units, and there were some of those had some serious problems that needed to be addressed, obviously. There are the vast majority of the units we did not get into. I would say that there is another set of inspections, by the way, that occurs each year, and those are undertaken by HUD and/or its agent. And that's the REAC inspections, as they're called. The Real Estate Assessment Center at HUD goes out and inspects units as well. And what they found was that, in fact, between last year and this year, that there was a significant increase in their scoring of the apartments overall. They do a random sample, not a hand-picked selection, and they're randomly selected by the HUD contractor, not by anybody related to us. And we saw an increase of about, I think about 15 to 18% in the scores between last year and this year. So I think that while there are certainly some apartments that have some serious conditions, the indication from the independent inspections by HUD would indicate that the conditions were getting better. And there is additional work that we are doing. We just had an announcement today that we have created 50 maintenance technician positions that we will be hiring as soon as possible. The recruitment has started immediately. Those positions will be for highly skilled people who can do a number of activities, kind of like a jack of all trades. When you have some repairs on your home, you call somebody in and you got about a list of a dozen little things, you know, light switch here, a drip here, something there kind of thing. And so they will be brought on board to supplement what we currently have for staff and to allow them to deal with a much broader range of work in an apartment when they're in that apartment, so that they can deal with, in theory, all of the tickets at once instead of sending in one guy to do one thing and another guy to do another thing and so forth. So I'm confident with those adjustments and with the systems that we're putting in place, which is to automate well, we've got a new computer system, but also then putting in some additional hardware and software so that, for instance, the inspectors will have handheld computers. So when they go in to do the work, the first thing they'll do is they'll talk to the tenant about what are the outstanding items in your apartment. I see on my list here that there are 3 things, and they will confirm that those 3 things are still there. If something was done, the tenant says, oh, that work was already finished, they'll press a button, that'll be canceled out as a completed work order. Conversely, if the tenant said, oh, there's another item here that I forgot to call about or it just came up, they can add it to the system. It'll be automatically entered. So you'll have real-time information about each apartment. Part of the challenge is, up to this point, we've had to enter all the completions manually. So what we've found is we've done some work. We have found that a number of work tickets were completed, but they hadn't entered the results. This way, when the maintenance worker finishes the work, he'll press a button and the work is immediately indicated as completed. We're also building in there a quality control piece where the resident can will be, because this will be electronically communicated. So I forgot to mention the first part, which is the residents can now enter, or will be able to in the first quarter of next year, be able to enter their work requests into the computer, their home computer, their smartphone, or they can go to the management office and do it through a kiosk, and they'll get a unique number for the job, for the work order, and they can check the status of that work, and then they can also, once the work is completed, we'll send out a communication to them and ask them to let us know what they think of the work. Was it done satisfactorily or not? So all that sort of thing will help to keep all the information current and open up those lines of communication between the residents and the employees and the supervisors who will hold everybody accountable.
Okay. I do have some more questions.
No, you go ahead.
I don't know if you
Eric.
wanted-
Let me, yes. Between questions, let me acknowledge we've been joined by Councilman Nick Mosby.
Yep.
Welcome, Councilman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And then, and Eric, I'll get to you when Carl is finished.
Yeah. So, Commissioner,
Yes.
what is the process for tenants to file a complaint about work that needs to be completed or repairs that haven't been done?
Well, currently it's done by going to the maintenance office and saying, I've got a complaint, I mean, I've got an item needs to be repaired. There's also an after-hours number for each of the sites where you can call in for all of the evening, nights, and weekends. If they're unhappy with it, they go back to the office and put in a complaint. This is why one of the reasons why the system I just described, the new system will allow them to enter the information themselves directly at any time, and they'll have a unique identifier for their work ticket, and they will be surveyed afterwards as to their satisfaction with the work that's done. So that will be a dramatically enhanced way in which they can, one, submit their work requests, track the status, and then indicate their satisfaction or dissatisfaction.
Okay. And how soon should these be closed? You're saying 30 days?
30 days is the standard that we would like to achieve.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's the follow-up? What happens at what point? Is there a follow-up that happens after 1 week, 2 weeks, 30 days? How do you know that as we sit here this evening,
right,
what do you think you have open? How many are open complaints or repairs?
There are, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. There are, we have, to answer your first question, we have aging reports that show for each ticket how many days it's been out there. So we have aging reports, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's about 4,000, I think, that are over 30 days. Most of those are in the next several months after that time frame.
Okay, and so this is on a continuing basis, 4,000 for the past year, 2 years?
Actually, it's gone down by several thousand since January of this year. And it is, again, I don't have the exact number. I can get it for you, but it's, we are processing, since January of this year, I believe about 68,000 work tickets have been closed out, have been dealt with. So that tells you that, and we had a higher number in a backlog situation on January 1. That's gone down by about, I think maybe around 4,000 since then.
Okay. And if I might use the term respectfully, as you come before us maybe 4 times a year, at what point did you think it would have been beneficial to tell the council that so many of our citizens were living in conditions in which they were, where you're saying 4,000 or more, outdated, that's not the term I'm looking for, but we've had complaints for maybe health and safety repairs have been out there for.
Well, I'm not saying that 4,000 are all health and safety repairs. There are, as I've said publicly, there are a whole range of levels of severity, and in some cases, the number does not reflect the severity.
I understand, but just on a moment when you went out yourself, I go back to this case, we had someone living with gas fumes for a couple of months. And how is it that we would not have done something more immediate to remove that family from such a dangerous situation? How did that get by us is what I'm asking you.
That's something we're still looking into. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we moved the lady. You know, it's something that would not happen under the new system that we're describing, you know, in terms of having all this automated and people being able to track complaints coming in and so forth.
Okay, so I just missed something totally, not being disrespectful, but I thought this just happened a couple of weeks ago when you went out to a home. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm not sure
So
what
what's the new system? Is it
the
newer
new
than
the new
2 weeks
system is
ago?
the one I described that will
This is
be.
something going forward?
This is something going forward in the first quarter of
Okay. That's
next
what I
year.
missed.
It's the new computer system that will allow us to track all this stuff electronically.
Okay, so are you underfunded in terms of repairs and maintenance woefully?
We are underfunded by hundreds of millions of dollars on the capital side, well in excess of $800 million. This is a problem around the country. We're approaching $30 billion worth of backlog in terms of capital needs throughout the nation. We have well over $800 million here in the city of Baltimore, and it has a ripple effect. When you're not able to do capital repairs or replacement, it puts more pressure on the day-to-day maintenance.
Right, and you have, what, about $100 million in reserves for maintenance, or
No, we don't have $100 million in reserve for maintenance.
what do you have?
We have an operating budget for the entire public housing program of about $80 million, $84 million. And that's to cover 10,000 plus units. Well, 11,000 because there's others that are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And do you have reserves, or no?
We have reserves.
How much?
Our net unrestricted assets are right now, I believe, about 46 million,
Okay.
which represents less than 2 months, say about 1.4 months of overall reserves. That includes the Section 8 program as well,
Okay.
which has a much larger budget than public housing.
I have just about 4 more questions, Madam President. I'll reserve the others for later if I might be able to get back in. So this bumps up against part of what you just said, but you have answered this question before, so I'm going to ask it again for the record for this particular committee, which is, when did you know? When were these sexual allegations brought to your attention?
Be sure to speak loud.
I'm sorry.
I don't think they heard in the back.
Okay, so Commissioner, Commissioner, I asked, when did you know personally about these allegations of the sexual
Well, as I
harassment?
indicated in my opening statement, I'm not going to discuss the litigation or the pending investigations or the matters that will be subject to mediation.
Right. I'm not asking you to. And so
Well, that's one of the part of that set
you
of
can't
issues.
answer when you knew. Is that right?
That'll be discussed in the appropriate forum.
You don't think this is appropriate?
You're not the authorized designated investigatory. I'm dealing with the
All right.
federal HUD Inspector
All right.
General, and I'll be in the federal district court in mediation. It's a matter
Okay.
that is
Okay.
being handled in those forums.
Okay. So when did your office conduct an investigation of these allegations?
We've had ongoing investigations. I'll leave it at that. And the rest of it I'm not going to discuss here. I can't discuss here.
Can you tell me when you started the investigations?
I can't discuss any of the matters around this litigation here.
Okay, what safeguards have you now put into place so that this, if the allegations are true, that they don't happen again, and/or that people feel like they can confidentially and comfortably bring this before people who will then do what is proper to do?
Right. Well, as I indicated, we have communicated to every single resident about the inappropriateness of such behavior, and that what they should do if they feel like they've been exposed to such behavior, including reporting it to our office, to our hotline, and also to the police if it rises to the level of some criminal activity. And also, I mentioned the training and the communication to employees as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman, Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Don't forget to speak out.
Yes, ma'am. The system that you talked about that's going online in first quarter of 2016, One of the things that we frequently deal with is when and this is just an example, not directly related, but we'll get to why this point is important.
Sure.
When a constituent calls up 311 or goes online with the app, they want to get a pothole filled, and it gets routed to DPW, and the service request ticket gets closed.
Right.
And then a new service request ticket is created. It's sent over to DOT. All the while, the constituent believes that the pothole has been fixed because the ticket says closed, and then they drive home at night and they drive over the pothole, and the pothole is not fixed. When you talk about when these service requests come in, if an inspector goes out or a technician goes out to repair it and they're unable to fix it, are there some type of quality controls in place to ensure that that gets rerouted to someone who's able to fix the problem in a timely manner?
It would not be closed out. Our system will be a little different than some of the systems in the city, especially where there are multiple entities acting in the city. I know we come across that with the housing department sometimes, where we'll inspect something and then it goes over to DPW or whatever. We are not going to be closing out any ticket until it's completed, and then we will check with the resident to see if they're satisfied that it's completed.
Got it. And will there be any opportunities to provide progress on the status of a repair to residents? If it's, I could see some of the more major repairs could take more than one visit to fix.
Yeah, I think there will be definitely communication with them, but it should be sort of the first line of communication would be the individual who went out to make the repair, and they would report back that it has a second step or whatever that will require a follow-up. If there's some sense that something is left incomplete, uncompleted, then they will be able to communicate back in that fashion. But I think the way this new system would track things, and with this maintenance mechanic position, which is much more of a broad range of skills, it'll be much less likely that somebody would come in and do one piece and not finish. Because the point is, you just want to have somebody who has the skill to do all the steps.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Council President Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Graziano, do HABC have the administrative staff to really enter and track the data of the work orders that are being generated by complaints?
We have staff to do that. It's very labor intensive, and that's one of the reasons why we're going into the system of automatic entry by the maintenance worker when they go into the apartment, and also for the third-party inspectors that do the annual inspections, so that we don't have to have people keying in this information. It will be automatically, when you're out there with your handheld and you note a problem, it'll automatically go into the computer. Or when you're out there as a maintenance worker and making a repair, press a button, the repair will automatically go in there. And so that definitely will accelerate the whole process of keeping things in real time in terms of those items.
The work orders, back in 2011, I think they used to close out in 4 days the work orders. And now I think, if I'm not wrong, did you say 30 days for work orders? Closing out work orders for complaints?
Well, that's the standard for
30 days?
That has always been the standard, actually.
30 days?
Yeah.
The reason why I asked that, because talking to some of the employees, they said they used to close out work orders in 4 days.
I think it would depend on the nature of the work. It would vary widely.
Okay. Now, my statement in the papers was about hiring more workers. Where did that money come from? Because I understand the Housing Authority have over $100 million in reserve. Is that true or false?
We have, I believe, the last time I checked, $46 million in what are called net unrestricted assets, which is money that can be spent on a variety of things, but it's a little over a month of operating expenses for the entire operation. So that, for instance, some of that is for in the event, which becomes more and more likely, that Congress fails to pass a budget. Then we have money to send out our rent checks to the landlords. We have close to $190 million annually in Section 8 rents we pay. We've got another about $15 million in admin for that program. We've got, when you add in operating and all the other, well over $100 million.
So in total, can you send to the committee how much we have total in reserves for HABC, Housing Authority?
I can get you the exact number, but the net unrestricted assets is, I believe, about $46 million. But I'll check the number.
Okay, all right. Now, when these work orders that were generated by when the work orders was generated by the Housing Authority tenants, were they input into a system so that they could be tracked, or how was it inputted?
They go into the work order system, yes.
Okay.
They're currently manually entered, but again, with the new system in the first quarter of the year, the resident could enter it themselves and then get a unique work order number to be able to track it and be able to communicate better.
Because what I was trying to get at, Mr. Commissioner, is if the work orders was put in the system, who was tracking them, and why was it allowed to get so far back?
The manager...
We didn't have the staff to do it. We should have had staff to really do that. Because I think once we started looking at changing people's pensions and all that little stuff, influx of our more experienced people start jumping ship.
Well, the manager of each site is responsible for monitoring the information regarding all of the work to be done at their site, whether it's work orders or collecting rents or recertifying tenants or whatever. It's all the responsibility ultimately of the manager of that site.
Okay. Well, just my recollection of this whole thing is that somebody really wasn't manning the store in terms of making sure that these work orders that had been put in were actually tracked from beginning to end. And I think that's something with the new system. I'm hopeful that that would happen, because if we need more staff, we need to hire the staff. And the money that you use to hire the staff, did that come out of the reserves, or where did it come from?
No, it would come out of the operating budget, and we've done some restructuring of staff, and we've abolished some positions, some central office positions, and some positions that were related to the RAD sites where the properties have been converted. By the end of this calendar year, we will have converted 8 sites of the 22 over to the RAD program, and so we'll free up positions there as well.
Okay. I'll wait for the next round.
Thank you. Councilwoman Spector.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Commissioner, I respect the fact that you have to be careful not to discuss what might be part of litigation for the city, but what I wondered going forward,
Sure.
I have a building in my district that is part of the RAD program.
Going into the RAD program, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So as that progresses and that building gets updated and renovated and
Yes.
21st century housing, who is responsible for the kinds of issues that we're dealing with now? Would it be the company that's taken over the renovation of the building, or would it be the housing authority personnel?
Well, the owner of the property is responsible for all activity that goes on there, so whoever the new owner would be, and if they have a managing agent, they would be handling the issues. And now if we have a an asset management office with an asset management director who will work with and monitor some of the activities of these new owners, but ultimately the responsibility is the new owners will be getting rent subsidies directly from HUD for their properties. So HUD will be also monitoring the performance through their contract administrator.
I'm not clear. The residents in a building that is under the RAD program, a resident of someone that is in a RAD building.
Yes.
If they have a problem, what has been described or has allegedly, who would they complain to? The people that own the RAD company, or do they go to the housing authority people?
Well, they could always call us, but they should start with the management of whoever is managing their property, just like any other complaint. If they don't get satisfaction there, they can certainly call us.
The RAD company is something new into public housing. They're not government people. They're private. It's private industry.
They will own and manage the properties, and they have obligations because they're receiving subsidy from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. They have responsibilities there to comply.
If a constituent calls me now and has a problem in my district with a property that's being renovated by RAD, who do I tell them to be in touch with to register that problem?
They should call the manager of the property, and if they don't get satisfaction there, they can certainly call us, because we have an asset manager who will be monitoring that activity.
I just wanted to know how to handle this going forward.
Going forward, they should always start with the property manager. And if for some reason they're not satisfied, I'm confident that these managers will take these things responsibly. But if they're not satisfied, they can call our asset management office.
Okay. That's part of the going forward.
Sure.
Because we can't go backwards.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think we'll hear from some of the people who have signed up to speak.
Okay, I'll be here.
Thank you for being here, and all your people.
I do.
No, we don't have that many people. No, thanks. All right, so if you signed up to speak, now is the hour. Our first person to sign up is Coretta Taylor Boyd from Communities United. And step up to the podium if you would, Ms. Boyd.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Loretta Taylor Boyd. I'm from McCullough Homes. The reason I wanted to speak this evening is because there's some things Mr. Graziano doesn't know that he's not aware of. And there's some things that before I leave McCullough Homes, I really would like at least the City Council or public housing to address. A year ago, I was given emergency surgery to catch a blood clot going to my heart. The healthcare facility told me afterwards I could not return back to my apartment because I was living in deplorable conditions. My lease was threatened, and I insisted on an early discharge to come home to save my apartment. Excuse me. I was supposed to have a personal care provider. The service worker told the social worker I did not need a personal care provider. I needed daycare, adult daycare. And so that was stopped. I thought that I could get the assistance that I needed to make the corrections, okay? Roach infestation, mice holes in the wall, roaches and mice in my refrigerator and freezer, improper refrigeration. When you close the refrigerator door, you can still see the light on that's inside the refrigerator. Mold all over the walls in my bathroom. A hole in my ceiling with plaster hanging down in the ceiling of my bathroom. Maintenance refused to make the corrections. I had a hearing with the housing manager, an informal hearing, when I did not agree with her. There was a formal hearing also. Social services came out and said that I was qualified. They qualified me for a personal care provider because I was too ill to take care of my housekeeping and my cooking myself. The hearing panel disagreed that I was not able to do this. The doctors from Johns Hopkins also verified that I was not physically able to do the housekeeping and the cooking that I needed a personal care provider. The social services came out and said the apartment was too deplorable. The conditions of the apartment was too deplorable for them to be able to send anybody out. The end result is I am supposed to leave January 31st without the proper corrections being made. I am speaking because what was done to me would be done to other residents also. There are other elderly. I'm 66 years old, and I'm physically disabled. What was done to me would be attempted to be done to others. Now, management, Mr. Graciano, assured me that these conditions would be corrected and that she would send, her name is Rhonda Van Dyke, she said that she would send someone out to make the corrections. She never did. She lied to me. My fellow neighbors began to ask me, why is it that maintenance goes to everybody's apartment except yours? I said, I'm still waiting. Now, because I receive SSI, because my income is low, for me to continue to receive subsidized housing, I had to agree to sign something under duress, stating that I would willingly give up my apartment so that I could continue to get subsidized housing. This is not acceptable. This is why I'm speaking this evening. I know the issues are supposed to be about sexual harassment, but if they don't like you, they don't come and make the repairs. I had the president of the NAACP, Tessa, call and speak to Miss Van Dyke after I had taken a loaf of bread up to the management office that mice had chewed through inside the refrigerator and a frozen mouse that had been inside the freezer. These things are not acceptable. These things are not acceptable, whether I get other housing or not. These things are not acceptable. Now, this operation is on hold since August 13th that I'm supposed to have. They want to catch this other clot that's building up before a piece of it can break off and get either to my heart or my lung. I've been fighting all this time to get the conditions so that I can get a personal care provider in there to care for me that I've been approved of. A couple of days before I signed the paper saying that I would leave, okay, housing came out and approved me for special accommodations. They approved me for a 2-bedroom with a live-in aid because Johns Hopkins doctors said that's what I need because my condition is that bad. I'm asking the city council to do something.
All right, it sounds as if you've broken through and gotten some help, but I will make sure to follow up. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow. Mr. West, Wesley West.
Good evening, Council. I just want to say that these incidents are occurring in 3 different locations, which shows that these are not isolated incidents, but are indicative of culture, widespread abuse, and failures of the Housing Authority to protect vulnerable citizens. The response to the resident complaints have went ignored, not simply by the Housing Authority, and commissioners, but by the city at large, where the mayor has simply stated her disgust for the actions, if true, but has not taken concrete actions, steps to ensure that these type of things would not happen again. This is not just a violation of the victims' bodies, but it is a violation of their human rights, which include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, of all of these which were denied without question. The entire system has been torn down. While it's necessary to terminate the housing commissioners, it is also necessary to take a look at the systems that perpetuate this sort of behavior that only allowed to take place in low-income communities like those, for example, within the 7th District. Furthermore, I demand to public housing to offer citizens and residents within not just the 7th District, but all over Baltimore City, affordable, safe, and inhabitable homes and communities that residents can have a sense of pride in their community. I believe that it's important that this city needs to move in the right direction, and that's to hire new commissioners that will get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. I'm sorry.
Is that Hansel?
No, this is Mr. West.
Mr. West, I'm sorry.
Mr. West, we have a question.
Mr. West, do you represent any of the residents of the HABC?
I represent everybody that have come to my office, and I'm not going to speak to those individuals here. I pastor within the 7th District. However, I had conversations plenty times before. I'm not going to expose those individuals, but I am very active in the community when it comes down to these issues.
No problem.
All right.
I was just wondering if you directly did represent any of the those who have filed the suit. I guess that's what I was asking.
Oh, no, I'm not here to represent any of those filing suits. I'm just stating facts, what needs to be done right here, right now, like tonight.
We got you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lucky Crosby.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Crosby.
Good evening. My name is Lucky Crosby Sr. Up until October the 23rd, I was a maintenance mechanic at the Housing Authority in Baltimore City. I also was the safety officer for AFSCME Local 647 in the Cheap Stop Store. I'm here to let you know that I notified the leaders personally about what I have found out in my investigation at Gilmore Homes. They did nothing but rebuke me and suspend me when I had the union write letters to have me released to go to Gilmore Homes. I tried to call Mr. Graziano 7 times. I tried to call Jan Gosley. The only person even talked to me was Reggie Striver. Now, we have something called a labor relation meeting, a labor management meeting, when all the high, except Mr. Graziano, was at the meeting, and we discussed all the issues that goes on throughout public housing. They did nothing, from the deplorable conditions to what I brought to Carla Walt and Sean Buchanan on July the 30th at 5:42. I received a call from Mr. Sean Buchanan telling me that they're gonna have to cancel our meeting that we had scheduled at the AFSCME Hall about them not releasing me to investigate other health and safety issues. Then I received a call from several members from Gilmore Homes on July the 30th telling me about the article in the Afro, right here.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I'm a resident of Sandtown, Winchester. I'm a homeowner. I can look out my back door and see Gilmore Homes. I was alerted to around in mid-April that people was at Gilmore Homes asking questions about the deplorable conditions that the residents, not only in Gilmore Homes live in, but throughout the Baltimore City Housing Authority. And this is not right, that they can sit around and hide under some kind of lawsuit pending that they can't answer the questions of the citizens of Baltimore City. It is not right. Mr. Graziano has been the commissioner for at least 14 years. If you see the conditions at the public housing, all of the public housing development, it is horrible. They talking about inspections. No one inspect the units. The managers sit on that butt. You got the hard-working people at Local 647, and that's something you need to keep in mind. It's 3 different locals. It's only 331 maintenance employees. Now there's less than 300 because Ms. Walton had fired most of them. and they telling you a real faux pas. They have a portfolio meeting where Mr. Buchanan and the asset managers and the managers on a PowerPoint show you every open work order. When was it called in? When was it done? Or when was it not done? So they're not telling you the truth here.
Yes, Councilman.
Mr. Crosby, what was your position with HABC?
I was a maintenance mechanic.
Okay.
But I was the safety officer for the local. That means all the employees on all the development called me with health and safety issues.
Okay. And when were you either suspended or terminated?
I was terminated on October the 27th. October the 22nd. They taped the letter to the front door of my house.
And why were you, do you mind? I know it's a personnel issue, but.
Oh, they said that I did a workplace violence act and violated the code of conduct, which I don't understand. I'm waiting for my grievance hearing.
Okay, and you said earlier that you told folks something about something. What, again, I apologize. What did you tell to whom about what?
Oh, let me go back. On July the 31st, I was summoned to a meeting at Gilmore Home by the union president, Mr. Anthony Coates. And the members that called me all day stating that they're afraid that Mr. Buchanan is going to do a disciplinary action on them. So as the union shop steward, it is my responsibility to go to Gilmore to protect the members. I then try to call Miss Carla Walton at 11 a.m. I spoke to Miss Walton and I told her what was going on. I needed to be released. And I told Miss Walton on July the 31st what the residents, some of the residents of Gilmore Homes that told me. She said she was going to get back to me after she talked to Sean Buchanan to give me permission to be released, which is not in the contract that we had with them. She called me back at 2:41 on July the 31st. I stepped out the meeting and she said, "You at Gilmore?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, Mr. Buchanan said they're not going to discuss any of the sex stuff, the alleged sex stuff at Gilmore." Then they subsequently suspended me for 2 days, August the 5th and 6th, for going to Gilmore about the meeting.
So on July 31st, you told your supervisors that there were complaints of sexual harassment?
Yes, I told Carla Walton, the chief of HR.
Okay, keep
Okay.
talking to us.
Okay.
Just talk to us.
Okay.
So you did say to supervisors that you knew or you were told of.
No, not supervisor, upper management.
Okay. Upper management of allegations of sexual harassment.
Yes, sir.
July 31st.
Yes, sir.
And then what happened?
Excuse me?
And then what happened?
Then Mr. Sean Buchanan, Miss Kimberly Washington, and Miss Carla Walton disguised a scheme to try to get me terminated.
Okay. Gotcha. And was anything done, to your knowledge, to investigate these allegations?
Oh, well, I have a letter here dated August the 12th from Miss Carla Walton when she told the union president with my name on it not to allow me to go to Gilmore Homes to investigate the alleged sex thing because they're aware of it and they investigated. And it dated August the 12th, 2015. I think I gave you a copy of this.
Okay. Yeah, I do. But, and again, to your knowledge, was there at any point that you knew where an investigation of these allegations that you reported were followed up on?
Not at all. Again, we had a labor management meeting in early August, around August the 9th, when I told Miss Walton, again, I'm willing to walk with her to Gilmore and take her to these residents who said what they said to me in relation to what they was asked to do as far as the sex allegation. She said, I quote, "She don't act on hearsay." Then she said, "Call the office of the investigated and audit." I called and spoke to Mr. Lawrence Bibbins. He hung the phone up on me.
Last question, Madam Chair. You were terminated October 22nd. Were you offered your position back?
Yes, I was offered my position back, but they had gave me a list of condition called it the settlement agreement. First, that I'll be moved away from a family development. That means I won't have any interaction with the residents so I can see these deplorable conditions that they're allowed to live in. Then it was something about a gag order. Then it was something about me going back on probation for 45 days. It was something about me giving up my right to sue. It was something about me signing a confidentiality agreement. And then they had one, number 6, it was weird. The Housing Authority promise to treat you fairly and give you the opportunity to succeed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I skipped these two checkoffs. Corey Hansel and Anna Hirsch, I guess you're coming up separately? Oops.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and Councilman Member Stokes and Mr. President. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I appreciate the council's looking into these important issues. My name is Kerry Hansel. I'm a civil rights lawyer here in the city. I represent, together with Annie Hirsch, who's my co-counsel who will speak in a moment. It's our honor to represent the victims of sexual harassment at the city housing complexes you've heard a little bit about today. We have currently 20 existing clients. We've asked the court to certify the case as a class action to make sure that what we do protects every single victim that has suffered the same fate as some of our clients. Very briefly, I'll tell you what our 3-month involvement and investigation has found. We have found that women were repeatedly in multiple different complexes owned by the Housing Authority subjected to demands for sex in exchange for repairs. And I'm not talking about women who wanted their place painted or nice carpet. I'm talking about people with life safety issues, women who had no electricity in portions of their house, women who had no heat, women who had mold that caused them to cough up blood. I'm talking about very significant horrific circumstances that these women and their children had to deal with. One of the young children, a 4-year-old girl, walked into my office. It's a law office. It's not a welcoming place for a child. She walks in and she looks up and she says, "Mommy, can we move in here? Can we live in here? It's so clean. It smells so nice." And her mom then pulled up pictures for me on her cell phone of her place, and it was caked in mold and filth that you wouldn't believe. The woman cried in my office, told me she cleans it 3-4 times a week, and the black keeps coming back. Neither one of them can breathe. Another young mother whose 8-year-old child had to suffer with her told me the story because she would not sleep with a maintenance man. He comes to her house after a flood. The heating pipe broke. There's a flood. Her upstairs floor is 2 inches deep. She says to him, God, you've got to help me. I've got children. What can we do? And he says to her, well, what are you going to do for me? And then ultimately had a very explicit comment that I won't repeat for this in this room about the specific favor, sexual favor she was going to be subjected to. She said no. She was strong enough to say no, and that man turned around, walked outside, let that couple of inches of water seep down and destroy most of what this poor woman owned. And then over the course of 2 different years, she had no heat. It's a heat pipe that broke, and the mold began to grow. So what she did in the winters to stay warm with her 8-year-old daughter was turn the gas stove up on high with it open and sleep downstairs within eyeshot of that gas stove, hoping that they weren't going to suffocate to death to avoid freezing to death. So when somebody tells you there are 68,000 tickets just this year in the 11,000 units, that's more than 6 per unit. That's what we're talking about. When somebody says to you there are 4,000 unresolved that are more than 30 days old, it's 4,000 women like that. That's what you have to appreciate to understand the magnitude of the horror that we're dealing with. When you go out to these places, you can't breathe. You can't eat because their refrigerators don't work. You shiver because the heat doesn't work. It's horrific, and it's inexcusable. And we're going to do something about it. And then when you layer on top of that, what these women are being asked to do is sleep with the maintenance men to get repairs made. And that's in answer to the question, how could it get so bad? How could we have 68,000 that needed to be repaired since January? How could we have 4,000 that are more than 30 days old? That's your answer. Because a lot of these women were strong enough to say no, and then had to suffer the consequences with themselves and their young children paying the price for what amounts to utter and total and complete mismanagement. And that's what our 3 months of investigation in this case has found. It's the same thing that was found by the union investigation. And it's the same thing that I think ultimately the Housing Authority has found itself. I will say this, Mr. Graziano and his team are to be commended, and you should hear that because it means a lot coming from me, for their actions subsequent to the filing of the lawsuit. What happened before that is utterly and totally an inexcusable failure of leadership. But since that time, there have been great strides made, and we thank you, Mr. Graziano, for those great strides. They are too little, too late, but they are being made, and we hope to continue to make them, and we'd like to find a place where there is some common ground between these women and the leadership of the Housing Authority, and this can be put behind us. There are strides being made, and we do appreciate that, and you should know and be aware of that. In terms of Councilmember Stokes, you asked the critical question, who knew what when? Here is what we know, without the benefit of discovery, without the benefit of the depositions that I promise you will come. Here is what we know today. Of the women we represent, 8 different women filed 12 different complaints over the last 3 years. We know from internal documentation that at least one of those complaints made it all the way up to the desk of the Inspector General in late 2013, before the Inspector General's position was terminated and that entire office shut down in 2014. We know that the highest levels of management were informed personally by one of these women because, believe it or not, she worked at the Housing Authority. So put yourself in the shoes of a gentleman who is the Deputy Executive Director at the Housing Authority, and a woman you've worked with for a month or more comes down the hall in your office and you say to her, how's life at Gilmore Homes? I know you live there. What do you do there? How do you like it? And she says to you, well, Mr. Deputy Executive Director, it's been difficult for me to suffer with this, and I've worked right down the hall from you for some weeks, and it's been tough to know that and deal with what I've been dealing with, but because you are asking, sir, here's what life is like. I can't get any repairs done because the maintenance men refuse to do them unless I sleep with them. My daughter and I have no heat. We have mold. We suffer with conditions that are threatening our very existence. Please help us, sir. And what happened after that was explained to the gentleman, who is amongst some of the highest management. He appears on the website of the Housing Authority, was that he turned around, left. Okay? He didn't put on his coat and go right down there and solve the problem. He had an investigator call this woman, and what he told her was, well, you know, these guys have keys to your house. I mean, there's only so much we can do. We can't guarantee your safety if you're going to come forward. And she's provided us with sworn testimony to that effect. These women have all come forward, and we have insisted on a very high bar for our clients, which is that they must be willing to tell their stories, they must authorize us to tell their stories, and they must provide affidavits under oath, which are publicly available at our website. So we have demanded a lot, and these women have been brave enough to turn that much of themselves over to you and ask really your mercy and the mercy of others who are in a position to do something to help here. I want to suggest to the council there is something you can do to help. Mr. Graziano does not work for you. All the mayoral candidates have pledged that he will not have a job once one of them is elected. I leave that to them. As I said, he has indeed made great strides, and I leave that to those candidates and that decision, and I would suggest you should too. But here's a difference you can make now. We've worked with Councilmember Stokes' office and Mr. Brown in that office to suggest some legislation that would have stopped this at the beginning. And it's this simple. We've asked that you consider allowing for the recovery of attorney's fees for women who or any residents of housing anywhere in the city who successfully bring a rent escrow action. Now that means that a judge has determined that their conditions are unlivable. They violate code, the types of conditions we've heard here today from residents and that I'm telling you about. I went to rent court for one of these residents the other day, just to help them out. I will tell you, I was there. There were 45 residents of various rental units in the city of Baltimore, and about 20 landlords. Every single landlord had a lawyer. Not a single resident in the city that was there of the 45 that day had a lawyer except my client. Okay? So they don't have effective access to the judicial system. Our bill would allow for attorneys' fees to be recovered in the rare circumstance where their conditions are so reprehensible that a rent escrow is enforced. If you do that, if this body passes that bill, here's what would have happened in the case we're here to talk about. The very first woman who was asked, you're going to perform sexual favors or I'm not going to fix this life-threatening condition, could have looked in the yellow pages and would have found any number of lawyers because they knew they could get paid ultimately if they were successful, and could have hired a lawyer, and he would have looked into it. And the very first time this happened, instance number one of a woman without electricity, without heat, with mold, with rodents, because she wouldn't sleep with a maintenance man, would have been stopped because there would have been somebody like me there to help her. And we want to provide that relief, and it's something you as a body can do to save these women and to make sure this does not happen in the future, to make sure the worst conditions in Baltimore are corrected. And I'd urge you to do that. And I'm here and happy to answer any questions.
So, Counselor, I'd like to know if we're going to get the truth. You said depositions. What I'm asking you, settlement aside, negotiations aside, we need to know the truth. What happens too often in our settlements in the city is that everything gets bound and gagged, and we don't know the truth, and we don't know how to fix what has transpired, and it happens again and again and again and again and again, and it gets bound and gagged again. I want to know the truth. This body wants to know the truth. This city deserves the truth. It deserves to know the truth regardless of a pending settlement. I can't tell you how to try your case or what to do with it. I'd rather it go to open court than it go behind closed doors and a settlement is made. I'd rather it go to open court. I'm asking you, are we going to know the truth, or is it going to get bound and gagged?
There is not a single fact that has come to our attention that you can't read today on our website, and I don't expect that to change. So you go to hansellaw.com, you click on the contacts page, you will see affidavits. Lucky Crosby, who testified earlier, Anthony Coates, who's the union president, former employees of HABC, victims, the plaintiffs themselves, have all provided their sworn testimony, and we have provided a public venue for that. And my intent is to continue to do that.
My suggestion, Counselor, or not my suggestion, folks are not guilty until proven so. So the fact that your witnesses will swear to their affidavits doesn't mean that in a court of law that they will be declared true. And they would just be that, allegations. They will always have that term, allegations. They will never say, this is what happened. These are the facts. That's all.
Our goal is to get to the facts. We don't prepare to settle cases. We prepare to try them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Let me acknowledge that we've been joined here by Senator Ferguson, State Senator Ferguson.
I see Antonio Hayes.
And Delegate Antonio Hayes. Hey, thank you for your interest. Thanks for your support. Our next speaker is Ms. Annie Hirsch.
Okay.
Good evening, Council Committee members. Thank you for having us here this evening. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. I'll try not to be redundant and hit on those points that my co-counsel, Mr. Hansel, did not touch upon and that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first is we've spoken a lot about the women who are subjected to sexual demands and who made great sacrifices and lived in truly deplorable conditions and did not give in to those demands. And I also want to touch upon those women who did give in and make it clear that these were women who were in dire circumstances. These were women that were not looking for cosmetic changes. These were women that were trying to save their own lives. Pardon me.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. And their families' lives. And these were women that were in situations where if their electricity went out and their refrigerator went out and they lost food, they couldn't buy food again for the rest of the month. They didn't have food to eat. They didn't have heat in their homes. These weren't people that were just looking for, a couple of fix-ups here and there. So these women that did acquiesce and did the unthinkable and the things that most of us don't even want to talk about did so to save their own lives. So while those women that were able to resist and were able to find a way to get around those things were extremely brave, those women that gave in and that did what they needed to do to preserve themselves were doing just that. They were trying to save their own lives, and they were equally affected in some of the most horrible ways that we can really think about and that we don't like to talk about. The other thing I wanted to touch on when Mr. Hansel was discussing the legislation issue, and he spoke of all the tenants that did not have attorneys and that every landlord had an attorney. That's just it. The landlords, they're allowed to recover attorney's fees. So what happens is a tenant goes and brings a rent escrow action, and if they do so unsuccessfully, that landlord can go after that tenant for their fees. So it's really an unbalanced system as it stands. The landlords hold all the power. They can recoup their attorney's fees. The tenants don't know how to go about things properly. They don't know how to use the system properly. Their cases may get dismissed on technicalities and not even get to the substance of the matter. And they worry about having to pay attorney's fees if they don't do it correctly. So we're really looking at trying to even the playing field and stop future instances, and that's what we're trying to do. So I won't repeat everything that my counsel said. He really summed it up quite nicely. These women and all the residents are fighting for their lives and trying to stay alive. They're our most vulnerable populations. They're the ones that are most at risk, and they're the ones that we're trying to protect here today and in the future. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Thank you. Oops, that's not right. There she is. Excuse me. Christina Flowers? There she is.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, all council people. Just to take the opportunity of my involvement to the point, as a homeless advocate, I always got to think of, as a homeless advocate, I always got to think of homeless prevention as well. And I think of the young mother that made the call to me because she had her CPS work on three-way, just complaining that they wanted to take her child if I couldn't promise her a place to stay. Paul Graziano, you got to think about the accountability here that you have to the vulnerable population. That means the individuals in public housing and the homeless individuals. It's a broader picture to this situation, I understand, and the changes are being made, but we have to stay focused when it comes to the community and the individuals that you serve. And I know you have your team and your staff here. I deal with those type of folks too, but when it comes to accountability, it starts with the head. And if anybody needs to go, if you feel like you don't need to go, then you may need some of them to go, because someone have to go when such critical situations is spilling into the community, and not to any community. When I walked through the community right after the uprising, I seen some of these conditions. You know, I seen the women invite you in the house and see how they live, but I know this is not a bashing session, but just really think about the trauma that is being trickled down into these families. And it's real important that you use the community and you use the resources to help you to make better decisions when it comes to helping us in a whole. Because when these families are homeless and when they're looking for a place to live, then that's another whole situation. So agent heads, we thank you council people for having this meeting, but we have to hold agent heads accountable. When it comes from our homeless services to our vulnerable population, they need the accountability, and you guys have to implement it and demand that they do it. And when they stand at this mic, make sure they have numbers, because you prepared them for this meeting. So when you ask them certain questions, they should be ready to answer you and get it out the way. And that's just my quote on this, and let's just remember the vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Diane Corbett. Diane Corbett.
Good evening to the council and to Mr. Graziano and your staff. Mr. Graziano, you said 30 days for maintenance. I live in public housing. 30 days was over a couple of years ago. It was 20 days turnover for the maintenance work orders. And when we did call, we had a number that we did call, and you all eliminated that this year, 396-3050. And the lady did use a computer. You said she didn't, she does. She did at the time use a computer because they gave us a confirmation number.
Hey, talk to...
They gave us a confirmation number to let us know, to keep track of our work order number. And a lot of times, the work order didn't get complete. I'm a type of person that would call. Again, other people might not call. So that's how y'all, your whole staff is in trouble about that, because people didn't follow through. And then when you said about emergency maintenance, it wasn't true, because I called, my toilet stopped up. And this was a couple of years ago. And if it wasn't for the guy that I know that was a maintenance person to come to unstop it, I would have to wait the whole weekend, and it was a holiday weekend, for my toilet to be unstopped. And that's an unlivable deplorable conditions. And you also said about safety, and I heard you say this on television. Well, when I talked to you 2 years ago at the library, I was telling you to come because we was having problems with the drug dealer. And my lease says that I'm supposed to live in safe and harmony, and I don't. My seniors don't in Douglas. They had to stay in this year because of the drug trafficking. I'm so glad that my councilman came out, Councilman Stokes. When we told him about the problem, he came out. He got the police to working, but it's your staff. We done had 5, I'm over in Douglas, 5 different managers, Thomas, Jones, Mr. O, Smith, now we got Johnson. So if the people rent and stuff get mixed up, because we have 5 different managers and everything, if you treat people like human beings, they will start acting like human beings. All of this stuff that we have had, if you treat people the way you want to be treated, and that my grandmother and them always told us that, to make sure that we treat people the way we want to be treated. With this new system that you have us to pay our rent by, I don't like it because we didn't have a hearing on it. To take it to a check cashing center, we had the problem with Hagerstown. It should have been a better implement. It should have waited 6 months next year, 2016, not this year. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I know you have a lot of other people here, you know, that wants to testify, but here we go again. Treat people like human beings. And then we had a program, because I work for Housing Authority. I did 17 years, even under when you first came in. There is a problem because when you, as a resident, as a tenant too, and I told them this when they hired me in 1987, that I'm an advocate first, then I'm an employee. I got in trouble because I worked at 740 Property Grove. We had a big snowstorm. That's a senior building. The snow was not cleaned off. I got in trouble because I said something about it at a mayor's meeting up at Emerson. And I feel like the young man back here, I got in trouble. I didn't get fired though, but I got reprimanded. And it shouldn't be when we speak out, because I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna speak out. I don't care if I get fired or not, but I'm gonna speak out because I'm in the school system now. If I see something that's not right, I'm gonna speak out about it because the little people won't be able to speak out. I'm gonna speak out for them. And that's the way I was brought up, and to the day I die, I would still do the same thing. And if you ask me, like everybody else said, I think you should go. I'm not the mayor, but if I was, you would have been gone. Because people are living in fluid condition.
Ms. Corbett,
can
you talk to us?
I'm sorry, but people are living in employed position. We have brand new pipes on the outside of our homes. And it's been like for a couple of years now, where the leaves have fell in. There's no accountability. That's what I have to say to you all. There's no accountability to fall behind when things are put in and money is being spent. Nobody come back and check. We just got a new heating system in Douglas. I can't turn mine on because it's too hot. I can't breathe. That's how hot it is. I cannot breathe in my own house. We have the windows up, can't breathe. New knobs on the thing. Still don't work. I mean, there should be accountability. When you have contractors come out, somebody from your office should come out and somebody from your office should come and follow through with this. Come to the Douglas Homes, whatever homes it is, follow the maintenance supervisor and make sure that the contractors are doing their job. And it's wasting money. That's what I think. It's wasting money because we had lights on the outside of Douglas. The majority of them are out because the man from Housing Authority told us it needs to be rewired. They put new lights up, hadn't rewired any of it, so most of the lights are out.
Okay, so this is at Douglas.
Yes.
So we know where you live, so the heat's too hot?
Yes, they just fixed that. They put new pipes in last year, October of last year.
Was it like that all winter? Was it too hot last winter?
Yes.
So it's always been too hot?
Yes, yes. Since they put it in, I have it off. I use a heater. I bought my own heater.
So you turned off the heat and you bought a heater?
Yes, because it's too hot. I mean, I have trouble with my nose, so
I know what that's
it's too
like.
hot. You can ask, and any doctor
believe you.
at John Hopkins would tell you most of the seniors are dehydrated because of the heat.
What, in Douglas Homes?
In any public housing, you can ask especially at John Hopkins, because most of them go to, the seniors that live in Douglas go to John Hopkins, because they don't pull their windows up, and it's so hot in there, they dehydrated. They are dehydrated.
So they keep the windows closed and the heat is on and they're getting dehydrated?
Yes.
Okay, so can we please do something about this? Would you? I mean, so a contractor came and put in a new heating system?
Right, last year, yeah, last year.
And so it's not calibrated correctly, it's too hot, apparently. Would you? And can you connect with Ms. Corbett so you know where she is? Okay? Let's get that fixed. Let's see if that can be done.
Okay, and then we also have problems with rats. Rats are running wild in Douglas. We got rat holes. Like I said, we have 5 managers. We have talked about this with all 5 managers, and when they put that new strip up on Fair Street, the rats started running wild, and we cannot get rid of them. I mean, they digging holes everywhere. All in Douglas, you can see the holes dug up in the big yards and everything. You see rats. Children can't even sit outside because the rats are running them wild.
What did they dig up on Fayette Street?
When they put the new strip in, that the medium strip on Fayette Street. They go
when
straight
they
down.
dug it up, the rats came.
The rats came, and they continue to come. And they dug holes all. We had gotten rid of that because the manager that we had, he left and went to Washington Housing Authority, Mr.
What, did he
Spriggs.
take the rats with him?
And we had he got rid of the rats. He put abatements down. When we talked about stuff, when we talked to him about things, he got it done. But he's gone. He was one of the good managers. He left. He went for a better, higher, greener grass. But when we had a complaint, with stuff now, the managers are not there because they are in training. They always in training, and the people that live in the development don't have a chance to talk to them. We had 2 days where we could walk in anytime, Tuesday and Thursday from 9:30 to 11:30. We only have 1 day, and that 1 day is not even open to us because the managers are in training. So we can't even get to the manager, and Lord knows if you're working like myself, they don't have no night time. You gotta miss your job to go take care of business. And I think it should be an evening thing.
Of that?
You know.
Can we please get some help? I'll try to get out. I mean, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Excuse me. Christina and Kim Trueheart.
Really? She has something to say.
And after Kim is Perry Hopkins.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Scandalous. But I haven't heard anything to solve the problems this evening. And that bothers me. Because what we have is a crisis of confidence in leadership. Now, there are varying opinions about the leadership prowess in the Department of Housing or Baltimore Housing or whatever we want to call it today. There are folks on one side of the discussion who love the fact that Mr. Graziano and his staff have excelled at meeting federal mandates. They've reduced the number of public housing units in the city. They've now started to privatize public housing. And those are things that the federal government says it wants done. So they've done that very well. What they failed to do is take care of the people, the residents of Baltimore City, who live in the housing that remains. And I have been talking here recently about the fact that this city council body needs to like start addressing the human services that don't get delivered to the citizens, especially those who are less fortunate. Right now, we've got a situation where there are 4,000 outstanding service requests that we've been told.
Over 30 days.
Over 30 days, regardless.
There are many more.
Okay, all right. So, I haven't heard a plan. I haven't heard that of those, which are the highest priority, which ones put people in extremis, right? I haven't heard how they're going to whittle down that list. I've heard about a new software system, but they had an old software system, and that didn't work, and nobody paid attention to it, obviously. You know, we have this thing called a Board of Housing Commissioners, and supposedly they supervise the activities, operationally, financially, of the housing authority. And I didn't see any member of that board here this evening. And so I'm not sure, did you ask them to come this evening? And who are we really holding accountable for the operations and activities in the housing authority? Because you really can't tell him what to do. He doesn't work for you. Now we got this Board of Housing Commissioners who are appointed by the mayor exclusively. Y'all need to fix that. Your legislators, write some new legislation to give us some oversight and authority over what's going on. People in this city are being harmed by the practices of the housing authority. Harmed. And the fact that you're sitting here and allowing citizens to be harmed. Okay, we're not talking they get hung up on the phone. We're not talking that somebody throws their letter in the trash. We're talking people's lives are being impacted by the way this agency does its business. And this conversation this evening has been business as usual. Not one conversation element has addressed how you're going to fix the friggin' problem. Is that what this is? We just going to talk? This man needs to be told to bring a plan, a 30-day corrective action plan here to address the problems. 30-day corrective action plan. He needs to be put on a performance improvement plan like every other employee in this city who doesn't perform their job. And y'all sitting there acting like it's okay. It ain't okay. Find out who can put this man on a performance improvement plan. And then when he fails to do the job, you fire his butt. All those people who work for him, all the people who are working for him, right, who brought the issue to his attention, what happened to them? They got fired.
Thank you.
Now, I ain't done yet.
Oh.
Why have you not proposed legislation as a result of this hearing? Do you need more information, or are you as deaf and dumb as he is in not listening? And not listening to what the citizens have said. They have told you what the problem, and y'all sitting here and you haven't proposed a solution either, except a hearing, another conversation. Propose a fix to this problem, because it will not be repeated again. I'm coming after your job, son, because you sitting there looking like you don't give a crap.
I beg your pardon, Ms. Trueheart.
Beg it all you want. I beg your pardon. What are you doing to help the citizens of Baltimore get through this? There are 4,000 people who got problems over 30 days old. 4,000.
Got it.
Make him tell you what he's going to do about it.
We know how to do our job. And we
No, you
appreciate
don't,
your
because we got to this place because y'all didn't provide oversight.
Well, thank you for helping us.
I only have just begun to help y'all.
Okay,
Y'all
well,
don't understand how much
we're
help
looking
you
forward
need.
to it. We
Because
understand.
y'all need more help than he needs. At least
think you're right.
he's pretending to do something. Y'all not even pretending.
Thank you.
Well, can I say something?
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, if you want
Because
to,
I was
but
going to get her
I
right back.
wouldn't.
Go ahead.
Let him talk.
I beg your pardon, please,
Let him talk.
Kim.
He's the president, isn't he?
It's up to you, Mr. President.
I defer.
Well, then, now, listen.
I defer to you, Madam Chair. But she just sit there and said that we have no control over this commissioner, so she's being very contradictory. Well, after you win the election, maybe you might want to do that.
Excuse me, everybody. I have a gentleman who hasn't had a chance to talk, and his name is Perry Hopkins.
Where's the bill that you introduced?
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I have done more for people in public housing than you have ever done, Ms. Truhart.
Don't engage, please. Mr. Hopkins, good evening.
Good evening, Chair. First off,
Could we have your attention, please?
First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Perry Hopkins, and I am the field and community organizer for Communities United, directly working in Gilmore Homes. One of the things that I'm just going to reflect on real quick is the people. I'm a community organizer, and I work with, not for, but with the people. We talked about accountability in this room. Well, let's all have some for the people. In June of this year, Communities United did a quality of life campaign, and it began in Gilmore Homes. After Freddie Gray, this neighborhood was torn up emotionally, spiritually, economically, financially. It hurt. But that wasn't the infliction of their pain. Their pain had been oppressed and put on them for decades. And the first place for quality of life issues begins behind the door of each and every unit, where children must be raised, lives must be formed. I door knocked. Communities United has a way of building relationships with the community in a way to find out what their problems are and empower them to address their problems. I took photographs, all of which I have on my computer and many of which I have on my phone, right here at this hearing. Deplorable is not the right word. Atrocity. I used several steps to try to resolve the problem. I first met with Councilman Mosby, who was in charge of that district. Myself and another resident made a meeting and sat down and showed him over 45 pictures of the atrocities that are now being showed on the news. I said in June. City Hall was made aware. Nothing was done. I talked to the residents, and we asked for community issues at a community meeting. The housing, the deplorable conditions, the mold, the rats, the insect infestation, many of which where rats are boring holes in beneath a child's bed, and they have no choice. You bathe a child in a bathtub surrounded by mold, 70-year-old structures that have been neglected for decades, affecting the quality of these people's lives. Why? Because they're poor? No one deserves to live like that. And they felt that way too. I went to the management office along with residents to try to resolve some of the problems. Management blamed the resident. They got roaches because they feed them. They got rats because of the dumpsters. The rats and the roaches were there before they came. They'll be there before when they leave. It's an ongoing problem that's bigger than the resident. And they cried out for help. Like I first went to the city council, tried to work my way from the top down. Nothing was done. Well, in this meeting, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. In this meeting, do you know what? All the residents that were at that meeting, it was a 60-minute meeting. For 13 minutes, they talked about how deplorable the housing was. For 22 minutes, they talked about being propositioned by the maintenance men in order to get repairs. In order to get repairs. They're made vulnerable by the living conditions. You got no heat, but you do have kids. You got mold, you gotta bathe them. And your greatest fear is homelessness. Well, they're actually homeless with a roof over their head. With a maintenance supervisor that says everything is their fault. Intimidation. You're gonna do what I want, we'll put you out. They live in that fear even today. Now, very much like the uprising with Freddie Gray, these residents have come together and are tired. They're ready to revolt. They're ready to fight back, and they've shown it. They've stood up for themselves and gotten change. A little change. Slow money better than no money. It's too little too soon. Too little too late. Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And everybody in this room should take some type of accountability for it. Because Gilmore Homes didn't just spring up. It's been a part of this city for a long time. And here we go. You know how many calls I get from other residents in other public housing communities, from single-family homes, from single dwellings that are being distributed and governed by the housing department. I have several letters right here on my phone. I'll be glad to share them with you. But right now, we got a little bit of progress. Right now, the reason that you don't see more residents standing behind me on this cold winter night is because they're afraid that they're going to lose what they got. I want you to think about that. Time for stop talking and do something. And that's been the attitude of the residents. They're tired of talking. They're tired of listening. They've stood up and they're doing something. I'm calling all y'all out. They're calling all of y'all out. Talk is cheap. Put up or shut up. You got a job to do. Do it or give it to somebody else who will. I'm going to say this about Mr. Graziano. I'm going to carry a little bit on behalf of the residents. We got progress. You know what our real concern is? You know what the residents' real concern is? What? That the progress that has been made, as little as it is, does not stop for some bureaucratic bickering. Get it done. How much time has passed? While we sit here right now, there's people over there with no heat, using their ovens. There's a kid that's going to carry a roach to school tomorrow in his lunch. Communities United is just here as the glue to help keep those residents together because they doing the fighting. Is it warm at your house? Is it? Trade places. I'll get you overnight stay. Treat them as you would your own. And it starts at City Hall. Accountability. How much have I talked about and what have I done? You show me your faith and I'll show you my deeds. Don't work, don't eat. And you do what you do and you get what you get. The residents have decided to do something. Give them what they're supposed to get. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins.
Any questions?
Mr. Hopkins, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
what you and your team have been doing.
Is it Gilmore Homes that has no heat? Yes, Councilman Branch. Excuse me, Councilman Branch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was an employee for the city of Baltimore for 26 years before I was elected. And what I heard the gentleman Lucky say is true. And then many of the higher management will pass it off as a disgruntled employee when they're really trying to fight for their rights. I know what it's like.
Well, he is, but the microphones, pull it out of the, pull it out of the holder and hold it up to your mouth. Okay?
I worked at a city agency where it was unjust, where there was a lot of injustice done. And if you didn't do what they want you to do, and they didn't want it to reach downtown to upper management, that they would put you around that lake in Lake Montebello in the snow to cut down branches. So I know what it's about. Many of my colleagues have probably never worked city government before they was elected. Many of them were probably community association presidents. They haven't actually saw the grunt work. What Ms. Like it, don't like it about what Ms. Trueheart said, she's 100% right. Tonight, when we leave here, we need to be able to sit down with housing and come up with a plan. It is cold. It's not going to get cold. It is cold. You are going to have people sitting there pulling those stoves down, getting heat from out of those stoves in order to get warm. You have those little kits in there where you have window seals that's not, that air's seeping through into those houses where those kids are cold. We are charged to do something. And if we don't do it now, remember, I've been in government for 32 years. These same concerns I've heard today, I heard back then. I saw it happen to me back then. I know when I was working for Public Works, each one of those managers, if they kept that budget down at the end of the year, got a bonus. I'd like to know how many of those managers last year received a bonus. Christmas is coming up, they got a bonus. And I started out as a laborer. See, we wasn't given that opportunity. I believe when we do leave here today, we need to sit down. We need to sit down with the mayor, with the administration, and devise a plan. We should not be talking about this come 2016. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Amen.
Thank you, brother.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that was the best last word we could have.
Mr. Coates.
And there's no one else signed up to speak, however, now there is. And we'll be happy to hear from you.
My name is Anthony Coates. I'm the president for Ask Me Local 647. Speaking to the microphone. My name is Anthony Coates. I'm the president of Ask Me Local 647 for Housing Authority of Baltimore City. I've been asked with the union not to speak because of conflict of interest. However, Mr. Crosby, I believe, covered everything. The thing that I've come to ask for, I need some assistance. Since the conversation that we had about my reinstatement and Mr. Crosby's reinstatement, things went left. I have a motto. I think that there's nothing that can't be fixed. I've written you, and I'm still waiting.
Please talk to us. It's just because it's our
Okay.
it's a hearing. And
I've
we
written
need
Mr.
to-
Graziano, and I'm still
I
awaiting.
understand.
Pardon me?
I understand. It's just that we're supposed to be the chief people listening so that
I'm
we
speaking
can
to you
do
now.
something. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I've written Mr. Graziano, and I'm awaiting a response, so we can fix this situation with Mr. Crosby. I believe he should be reinstated immediately because of the policies and procedures that have been violated, and he's been out of work for quite a time.
I see.
Now, right now, I need assistance with the folks who work for Gilmore Homes. These people are still in place when I've asked that they be removed and switch a team maybe from Latrobe to Gilmore and get these people out of harm's way. Right now, they're complaining to me they feel unprotected. So that's why I was looking over to Mr. Graziano and his
No, I
staff.
understand.
And to let them know that I'm sincerely approaching them, not to point fingers, but to ask them to move forward like we discussed in this meeting. Because the conversation was about moving forward. I feel like I'm the only one moving forward, and I'm standing by myself.
I think you've got a lot of other people walking right beside you now.
So I'm asking management, so we can move forward, that they come out and talk to the people at Gilmore Homes,
The people who work there,
yes, the employees.
and why do they feel in danger?
Yes, they do.
And what is the
They
danger?
feel like they're in harm's way.
Why?
Because of the risk of being in that environment. It was already bad with the Freddie Gray incident, and then on top of that, it's been looking like they've been targeted as sexual predators, the entire group. So,
I see.
So the entire group needs to be heard. The entire group needs to be ensured that they're safe in the workplace.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
That's where I'm at right now.
I see.
Okay? So I just need a commitment from Mr. Graziano and his staff that we go there and talk to these people and talk some more about the staffing and then maybe some to fix these problems.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr.
We'll
Coates,
ask-
can I? If I might.
Sure.
Thanks.
Councilman.
Mr. Coates, what is your position with?
I'm the union president for Housing Authority Local 647.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't actually you don't work.
I'm a
at
full-time union president.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We will
Can
talk with.
Can I ask him a question?
Oh,
Sure.
yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Coates, there was another young lady that was suspended, and I can't remember her name. She sent me an email, and I can't think of her name. She said that
Miss Young? Was it Nadine Young?
No.
No?
Let me see.
Suspended, a female?
Who other than Mr. Crosby was terminated?
The problem is, a lot of folks have been disciplined. It seems like, discipline is just a way of life right now. You can't discipline yourself out of the situation.
Well,
So there's
somebody's not doing something out there, and
Well-
it's not. It's that, and that's the message we're hearing. And it sounds as if it might be true because sinks are falling off walls. Mold is just about killing people on site, and nothing has been done. Someone didn't, how somebody didn't do something, or there aren't enough people to do what needs to be done.
That is the problem. We need more people.
But we are faced with not only these problems, that these severe living conditions that are being described, but with not knowing ourselves where to turn, because part of the conditions are being blamed on, and I think genuinely, by women who have experience with this sexual trade-off, and that are not cooperating and therefore aren't getting repairs made. Now, I don't believe for 1 minute that all the repairs, the 4,000 repairs, are because of refusals. I think that's part of an equation.
I think it starts from management. And if management include us in the process, we can fix a lot of these problems.
But some people in that process shouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
And so that's all I'm saying. But if you're
And
looking
that's on
for,
all levels.
If you're looking for like to get together with the people who work there, then I'm sure that we'll be happy to ask the commissioner if he could arrange that, please.
Yes.
Because they would like to meet with him.
Right. They need to
And
feel
I'm
secure.
sure that he would. And we will do that.
Yeah.
All right? And
Right.
that's what you want most of all right now.
Right now.
But tell the people that...
And read a statement of Mr. Crosby also.
Impunity. He doesn't want them to be penalized for coming forward.
Oh,
exactly.
And all right.
So I don't want a precedence to be set. It's not just about Mr. Crosby. It's about all the employees. Because if we allow this policy that's supposed to govern everyone only to affect my group of people, that's a problem.
What policy is that?
Not following the policies and procedures.
What procedures?
Housing Authority's HABC's Policies and Procedures Code of Conduct.
Okay.
Exactly.
So...
And that's for all employees. That's for everyone. It's not just for the maintenance staff. Let's be clear about that. It's for everyone.
Okay, Mr. Coates, you want the top management to meet with the workers who work...
It doesn't have to necessarily be Mr. Graziano, but we need someone from management.
I made it generic in case, I'm trying... And with the people who work for the Housing Authority of Baltimore City at Gilmore.
At Gilmore Homes.
We are going to ask if he would arrange that, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. Who's in line? Are you in line too? Okay. Well, you'll be our last one then, and please tell us who you are, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Benton Jones. I'm here on behalf of Douglas Home as well as all public housing scattered site Section 8 residents. A lot has been said tonight, which really I will basically repeat a lot of things, that the understanding and the need of the people is very, very, very important. Councilman Branch did highlight on the conclusion of the matter by saying, let's create a plan. Being a former public housing resident as well as a former public housing employee who's currently a community activist as well as a pastor as well as a youth leader as well as a counselor, you pick a title I cared for you tonight. But as we stand today, the public housing community is diminishing slowly but surely. A lot of work has been invested into the upkeeping for the current time, but no one checked on the present time. Until the sexual harassment cases came out, it was business as usual. And we have come to the realization that there is what is called a protocol procedure to follow. When the residents of Baltimore City follow the protocol procedure by first going through the tenant council, to their delegates, to their rad board, to the commissioners, and now to the city council board, it's because it's time for a change. Amen. It's time where we got to stop passing the buck and find out where can we place the blame and find out how can we solve the problem. It's time now that we take public housing out of the hands of HABC, out of the hands of HABC, and put it back into the hands of the residents who was able to communicate with HABC on the necessities that was needed for their developments. When there's no communication, there will be a fall. And when the fall comes, somebody's going to have to carry that weight. When you try to take a procedure that's been put in place and reroute it, you're going to get just what you get, a mess. When you're training in-house people only and disregarding the outside environment of the public housing community, you're going to hear about all the rats. When our city council changes policies where trash days are only twice a week or only one day a week for independent residents, then those residents now gonna throw their trash in the public housing communities, which means those dumpsters are open 24/7, which means now the rats are coming from any area they wanna come to invest in the community because someone changed the law. When you find out that the individuals feel intimidated, that once they go to their manager to file a complaint, manager informs them where you up for a warrant of restitution eviction, and they inform you that you up for that warrant of restitution eviction based on a work order repair that you had to pay for, knowing you live in public housing, knowing you don't have the money, that you're now afraid to ask for repairs. When you do ask for repairs, you got to be on alert that those repairs might lead into a house inspection, which then may cause another level of eviction. Intimidation, where do we keep passing the buck? When you have residents that say, I'd rather not say nothing because this room should be filled with public housing residents because of the minds that are behind the scenes, then you have a problem. When you have individuals that are not able to afford to even get a broom and they only given days to go to their maintenance shop to get one at a particular hour, missing those hours, they can't even sweep their floor. We need to change some policies and procedures within house. We need to deal with the staff that is already on board. As it has been indicated and stated, Douglas has went through a process of 5 managers. When you keep changing employees, you keep pushing away the problem. Because each person gonna bring on their own, they're gonna bring on their own procedure, and they're gonna introduce their own policy, which means the work orders or the entities that was introduced to the previous managers are no longer existing anymore. When you have individuals that cannot get special accommodations because of their health problem, and we only thinking of the sexual harassment because they came out, because that will release money. That will allow lawsuits to be found. But what happened to the residents that say, this is all I got? I have no place else to go. I desire to get a work order filled that I could paint my house when they told there is no paint to paint your house. And in these entities, when they go for maintenance repair and they get a list of prices, they get a list of how much it would cost just to get your locks changed, they get something in writing stating that if you raise your voice to a manager, you can be evicted. When do we begin to change the time? And in changing the time, we have to realize that half of our developments are now under RAD. Unfortunately for me, I'm on both ends. Who checked out why wasn't the RAD developments being repaired? Oh, simple, because they under RAD, let them pay for it. In the meantime, the individuals had to live under terrible, horrible conditions because we were waiting for other entities to take place. When do we take the time out and go back to what was proposed in the beginning of our amendments? For the people, by the people, and because of the people. When will we go back to the point where it says the people has the voice? When will we stop trying to sell out instead of confess up? Do I desire to see the industry change? Not until they meet the requirements that they're supposed to have done. Do I decide individuals to keep? You get more residents getting evicted when they go to management, than getting help that they need. And the strange thing about our council that I feel is that you're not aware of, because you talk to the entities that are in place. It has been identified. They get their increments. Public housing communities don't get an increment. They can't even get a decent rent adjustment without going through a whole lot of riffraff. They can't even pay the rent they have by going to agencies to get help without still being faced with eviction when the help's supposed to be submitted to them from their management office. When do we stop blaming and accusing and start listening and start putting up and start shutting up? I had no idea that was some reserved money in there, because a lot of things that are falling on the outside of our public housing communities. You go in some of these developments, you wouldn't even see grass because ain't nothing growing but dirt. You wouldn't even see a tree because ain't nothing infested there but rat holes. You wouldn't even see a corner because ain't nothing lobbying there but drug users, a hangout spot, because we took away too many entities that kept the little things from falling apart, that now we done created this mass level of confusion.
Okay.
So my question is, when will it,
What is it?
you know, they tell me often, I remind them of my mother, Martha Benton, but I try not to be her, because if I was her, we wouldn't be here today, because this wouldn't be going on. But because I desire to be an inkling of her, I'm here today. When will we begin to go to these individuals, Mr. Branch, and stop going behind office doors? You got to go on sites. You got to go to the people. You got to stop letting the corners be infested with liquor stores, and the children that don't even live in the communities come back and override the seniors. You need to come to the people or bring the people to you, and the whole list won't have to get before you. To be indignant is not in my personality, but to be just, to be fair, to be right, and to let you know you done let the ball drop, I can't say that. And I do say this. Being a former public housing resident and an HABC employee, I retired just so I could tell you all what I'm telling you.
Good for you.
You're wrong in how you let those developments go. You're wrong in how you creating lease violations to have them evicted if they part their lips. You're wrong for not allowing application, screen those people, deal with those individuals, putting children with children, coming and tearing up everything that is to tear up. And then you're wrong for separating the entities. When you had the individual housing police, you had internal affairs, you had all that in place. And now they have what? Baltimore City Police that will call only when someone is laying in the playground. That will come only when someone is saying they get ready to commit suicide. Where the lobbyists can come because there's no law to keep the tolerance down. And these people got to be barricaded in their home because no one's listening to the people anymore. When will we start listening again? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You are our grand finale.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Well,
Name, please?
Anthony Midget. I'm here because since the late 1990s, my name been on the Baltimore Public Housing waiting list. I was informed by Baltimore Public Housing. First, they tell me that my application wasn't accepted, but I kept the receipt. Then years later, back in 2005, they told me when I went there and filed the housing application again, they tell me that I'm not the right sex. Then I just went there again. They tell me I'm not the right sex. And, but however, they put my name on the list. I swear, I got a receipt.
You're not the right sex.
I'm not the right sex. My name been on there since 1999. And this a receipt right here.
What's your first name, Anthony?
Yes, ma'am. I've been on there since 1999.
Well, maybe we can get you some help about that. I mean,
I appreciate it.
This was a sex-related hearing.
Right.
But not that kind of problem.
Oh, thank you.
Of being mistaken. What? What did he say? Oh, preferential treatment? So you're having trouble getting in because the preference is for women? I'm glad to hear there's a preference for women out there somewhere.
Yeah, I went to the location on Pratt and Curry Street. The Baltimore City Public Housing office on Pratt and Curry, they're not doing nothing for me. You know, I've been on there for a long time. I'm trying to be patient and you know.
Do we have your name and address and everything? Okay, because we don't have you signed up, and I'd like to be able to follow up. All right, so are we okay here for the moment? Yes. Someone's going to follow up? All right, thank you, Mr. Scriver. Ladies and gentlemen, what? I'm not going to close this meeting. We don't have a quorum, do we? No. I'm going to recess this hearing only because we've lost our quorum, so we can't vote out the resolution, but that, by recessing, it allows me to call a meeting for a vote. I'm sure this resolution will be approved, Councilman.
Thank you.
And we certainly appreciate the opportunities provided for us to hear a lot of information that we needed to hear, and that we are bound, as indicated, to follow up on. Thank you for being here. Don't worry, it was not a mob scene, because we understand how people who rent fear losing the place they live. It's ingrained. We know that. But you filled this hall. You filled this hall tonight with a lot of people, with a lot of information we needed to hear. Thank you very much. God bless you. I'm supposed to read this that says we'll be closing the room shortly and ask that everyone exit promptly to the first floor main entrance. Once more, thank you for visiting City Hall, but most of all, happy Thanksgiving to one and all. No, I'm not. Take everything with you.